that. Well, then I think it is time to call our June 5th meeting to order. I will jump right into roll call here.
I would like to hope, if you don't mind, just share briefly our code of conduct, just a way to remind all of us to offer our guiding principles for a meeting. We shared it earlier, but I know that these things get lost when new folks join. So I'm just going to share that in the chat. And thank you, Megan. Megan shared it again in the chat. Please feel free to review that. And then thank you all again for joining us. We're looking forward to a great meeting today. Fully packed. Thank you, Hope.
Thank you, Judith. Yeah, it's important to have our code of conduct handy and just a nice review. So we will kick off our attendance. Aaron Black.
Sorry, that was me. I had a few folks still joining. I think I'm good now. Thank you, Hope.
Okay. I don't think Aaron Black is here. Natalie Brown.
Good morning, present.
Thank you. Good morning. Savannah Brown.
Present.
Thank you, Savannah. Charles Davis.
Present.
Thanks, Charles.
I hope.
Hi. Carrie Eckert.
She's present. She's driving, so she chatted in present.
Wonderful. Thank you for your support. Jacob Fry.
Jacob sent me an email, so he is excused this morning.
Thank you. Sean Gartrell.
I'm here.
Thank you, Sean. Kelly George.
I'm here.
Thanks, Kelly. Lorene Gilroy.
Lorraine is excused today.
Okay, thank you. Marjorie Grimsley.
Present.
Wonderful, thank you, Marjorie. Jenny Guencheva.
Present.
Thank you, Jenny. Danielle House.
She's here.
Thank
I'm
you.
here.
Thanks, Danielle. And Megan Lovelace.
Present.
Thanks, co-chair. Dr. Asia Lyons.
Here.
Thank you, Dr. Asia. Sharon Mock.
I'm present.
Thank you, Sharon. Michael Miller. Not seeing Michael. Dennis Streeter.
Present.
Thank you, Dennis. Angie Wold. Annette Zacharias. Well, I'd like to turn it over to our lovely representatives of our state agencies. If you would please introduce yourselves, and thank you for being here.
I'll go. Hi, everybody. Oh, I'm sorry, Kristen, you had your hand up. Aaliyah Andrews, I'm the Recovery Services Manager at the Behavioral Health Administration. I am your recovery TA.
I wasn't sure if we were doing hands or just popping up, so no worries, Aaliyah. So good morning, everybody. I'm Kristen Toombs. I am with the state's Department of Local Affairs. I'm a Deputy Director for the Division of Housing. And so I'm here when we need to talk about the intersection with housing, as we all know that there is such a key intersection there. So glad to be here with you all.
Go next. Good morning, everyone. I'm Phyllis Reed. I'm Director of Health Education Services Office at the Colorado Department of Education. It's great to be here.
I'll go next. I am Chris Labana-Frostowski. I'm the Deputy Director for the Division of Criminal Justice within the Department of Public Safety.
I can go next. I'm Megan Shelton, Director of Strategy Planning and Engagement at BHA.
And I'm Bonnie Holiday. I'm a program manager with the Prevention Services Division at CDPHE, and I'm also your prevention technical assistance provider, so I can connect you to anything that I know about that is related to prevention in terms of supports and resources. And back to housing, everything intersects with housing, so really happy that you're here.
And we have
Rachel, I
Rachel.
think you can go. Yeah, Rachel.
Me, the late one? Are you just calling me? Sorry, I'm late. Rachel Horde, DVR, Division of Oak Rehab, Support Employment Program Manager. Anything else I'm sharing? Just that? Like my favorite color or nothing like that? Okay. Thank you.
I think you're free to share whatever you'd like, Rachel. What is your favorite color? I'm really curious now.
Have to know. Yeah.
It's red. So I really like your glasses. I like when Aaliyah wears her red glasses. So yeah, it's red.
Awesome. Thank you.
I don't know if it's my turn, but I'm Ann Denton. I am your SAMHSA funded technical assistance provider for Planning Council operations.
That leaves space for everyone. Okay, we're so happy that you all are here. Thank you. Moving right along, we need to approve our May 1st meeting minutes. Did everybody have a chance to access those and review them?
It was linked in the agenda that I sent out, but I've dropped it in the chat again, and Calandra is sharing it on the screen now as well.
Marjorie.
I probably am the only person that has trouble accessing the docs, but I could open some of our links, but I was not able to open those, so I did
Sorry
not
about
review
that,
the
Marjorie.
minutes.
Okay.
So I'm sure it's me, but there were a couple items that went to that versus the actual document.
Okay, I can send in a different format as well. Thank you for letting me
Judith,
know.
this is Charles. I wasn't able to open it either.
Oh, I see. Sorry about that.
I had to request access, so I wonder if that's just, it might be the permissions or access settings.
I tried that and I just screwed it up, so.
I think Judith has to set those, so I don't think, yeah.
I just went in there to look at the settings and I noticed, yes, it was not open. So it should be now. So if you could please refresh, you should be able to access this now. I don't know what happened to that one. They were all on the same settings, but
that works for me.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yes, me as well.
Since not everyone was able to access, do we maybe want to push this to give folks some time to review so we can have a more accurate approval? Do we want to make this like a voting from email, like after not a voting, but after our meeting, give individuals a chance to review and provide any feedback? Can we do that? Approve
That
our
would be
minutes
great.
over email after our meeting? Is that Work for everybody?
Megan, you're
Motion to
mute.
approve the minutes via email. Looking for a motion to approve the minutes via email.
Seconded.
Thank you.
Wonderful. And that's helpful information, I guess, moving forward to ensure that our minutes don't have the lock or whatever in the settings. I know Google's funny, so even sometimes when I've sent things out, it still does that when you don't want it to. So thank you for updating that. Thank you everyone for reviewing our minutes, and we'll circle back with a vote. Thank you. Okay. Moving right along here. Next agenda item is to discuss our BASO Regional Council presentation last month. Any questions, concerns, thoughts that anybody wants to share? And Megan, I really want to thank you for your email of putting your questions there, and I really am looking forward to hearing from you as well.
Just making sure that y'all received those questions, and I'm just looking at the time. It is 9:15. Making sure we have time to discuss. I know those were a lot of questions. I didn't know if I was the only one that had them. But I don't know, Megan, if you want to maybe just address that. I know I sent it to you yesterday, and you were busy in Alamosa. But wanted to make sure that we did address those questions.
Perfect. Megan, I have to be honest, I have not even looked at that email yet, as I have a ton of them. I think I did see it come through yesterday afternoon, but we were, yes, in Alamosa, and then it's been a quick trip back. I can search through, or if you want to ask them.
Hope, do we have enough time for me to ask these questions right now? I cannot see the screen, so if you're nodding, I can't see.
I think, yeah, no, I was just looking at where we're at. It's 9. Yeah, I think we're good. I think we're okay. Keep going.
Where it says appointed by a local or regional public health or human service agency within the subcommittee's region. So these are the statutory requirements for these regional councils. And at the BHPAC meeting, I noticed that Jamie from Weld County DHS was asking, like, who does that mean? Like, who is that local or public health and human service agency? And so moving beyond the statutory requirement, it says that the BASO will make that appointment, right? But whom in the BASO would be charged with deciding, you know, what local or regional public health or human service agency? Who is the person? So I know, like, Dan is the Signal BASO, Meg is the Rocky BASO. Does that mean that Daniel Darding and Meg Taylor will be the humans who make those appointments, those statutorily required appointments? That's my first question.
So, Megan, I can actually provide an update. So since this presentation, we have made some progress on making these determinations, and I can't recall the timing, but we had originally tasked our BASOs with recruiting for the councils and us supporting them and giving them a toolkit for it. We have BHA is now taking the lead on the recruitments for only the inaugural council members for the regional councils. And then the BASOs will, for future appointments, the BASOs will then do that recruitment and follow that process. And so in order to make that happen, we are going to have two separate candidate selection committees. And so for the BHA and the BASO appointed seats, those are 2 lived experience seats appointed by BASOs, 1 lived experience and 1 county commissioner seat appointed by BHA. We will have a selection committee, which will include BASO representation, as well as BHA representation, reviewing those and making those recommendations for the appointments. For the 5 remaining seats that are appointed by county human services and public health agencies, we will have a selection committee that is made up of county. So I'm reaching out to county directors, commissioners, CHSDA, to get volunteers for selection committees. So there will be one per region and 3 county representatives on each of those and 2 BHA representatives to review those seats and make recommendations for those appointments. And so we are being strategic in that they, as folks volunteer, they have to be from, it'll be first come, first serve. They will need to be from different or different counties within their region. And so that will be the process that we'll follow for that. And so I am presenting that to our county partners in 2 weeks at that county meeting, which was the first time I could get on their agenda to do a presentation on that and then get those volunteers. Tasha, I see your hand is up, and so I am anticipating your question because I do believe I missed in the selection committee for the BHA and BASO appointed seats. There will also be a BHAC member sitting on that committee as well, so that we get the lived experience perspective. Megan, does that answer your question? And Tasha, did that answer your question? Or maybe you have a different one. Okay.
Did you want me to ask my question, or were you waiting for Megan to respond? I don't know. I got a little confused there for a minute.
Just with timing, just checking on timing, you guys.
Okay.
5 minutes.
And my question is, and you can get back to us on this or whatever, is the lived experience, the council members that are going to be picked, are those going to be completely like non-professional community members? Like me, like 100% lived experience in our counties? That's what I'm question is.
So statute is very specific on these. So you'll see there is, some of them cannot be a provider. One of them can be a provider. And so the application is live. It is on our website. I can put the link. Megan is saying no.
No, I just looked on the website yesterday. It's not on there.
They may have, I know that they were updating some of the language. So it was on there. And then they were updating some of the language not on the application itself, but I wonder, I will double check and make sure that it gets on there, but I will put the application in the chat for you all right now. And on the second page of the application, it calls for folks to select which seat they're applying for. And so it could be, I have lived experience and I am a provider, or I have lived experience, I'm not a provider. And so there is, because statute makes that distinction, we've made that distinction on the application as well.
Thanks, Megan. I don't want to take up any more time in this convo because I know that we have so much other stuff to get through. I do, just as a point of consideration, want to just encourage the BHA leadership, as well as diverse leadership from across state agencies, to truly consider what it means to go through this process without the voice of community, as we'll miss a lot of things that we won't even know we missed until like way after we've missed them. And while we know that statute is certainly not comprehensive in that space, I think it's important for us to just deeply think beyond the statutory requirement as to how we select that feedback loop. The more nuanced the feedback loop is, the better feedback we're going to get to be able to make sure we're serving all of our populations with authenticity. So I know that the last time there was that kind of, there was like a committee and there was a lot of interviews, and this was for this family voice council or this community council or these, and there were like, so many applications, so many interviews, a committee, all these things, and then it just kind of disappeared into thin air. And what we don't want to see is that to happen again with this process, and to truly institute that feedback loop on the front end. As we know, it's going to help us save money, time, energy and lives if we make sure that we have community voices in the decision-making process as this goes through, regardless of the sort of statutory requirements, which we all agree are pretty overarching and don't touch community. And I will get off my soapbox and realize that we are at 9:23. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Megan.
I know, Marjorie, you put a question in the chat.
I know that at one point there was the policy that people were only allowed to serve on one council or committee. I think that need to be clarified if that applies for this type of if people can serve on multiple councils or committees, or if that just is for a specific piece.
Yeah, I can answer that. So that is for our BHA councils. And so our protocol for that is if folks are wanting to save or serve on an additional BHA council, they need commissioner permission for that. And that is, we really want a variety of experience. So we don't want to have the same people on all of our councils. These, however, the BASO regional councils are BASO regional councils. They are not BHA councils. And so they would not be in that same category. Those are through the BASOs. Although BHA is running the recruitment for it and assisting with the process, they are the BASOs, regional councils. The BASOs will administer them. They will set them all up. We are giving them a toolkit that will give them very similar structure of the standard letters of commitment, bylaws, et cetera, that we use for all of our councils. But then it's up to them if they want to use that or if they want to follow similar structure as other councils they have within each of their agencies.
Thanks.
Anyone else have any questions or comments, suggestions? I'm going to hop in momentarily or real quick. I just wanted to add, I noticed there's a bullet point where the BASO Council will report quarterly to BHPAC. And there's no mention. Is that something that us here at BHPAC would also like to receive a quarterly connection and feedback loop with the BASO Council? So I noticed we were left off of the presentation and just wanted to bring that to attention and see how we can also receive feedback from this council as well.
Absolutely, Hope. I think that's definitely something we can incorporate into the agendas.
Awesome. Thank you. Okay. Anyone else? All right. We'll move right along here to our SAMHSA. Oh, Jenny, please. Yes. Excuse me.
I wasn't quick enough to click on the raised hand. Sorry. So I know that there are a lot of caveats that I can bring here about what I'm about to say, but I still wanted to mention this, and hopefully it's just part of the growing pain process. The initial steps that providers like me have experienced in communicating with the BASOs have been overall pretty underwhelming. I know that they were super busy. I know it's a gigantic endeavor, and they probably didn't have the readiness to pay a lot of individual attention to agencies and get into any kind of discussions about clinical criteria for success and serving best some groups that may appear to be kind of secondary to the big goal. And so with that being said, I'm definitely hoping that there will be some tracking process of how that's changing over time, because I know that we can do better, we should do better. And regardless of the fact that, this is a kind of statutory driven process, I think we do this for the people of Colorado. And so if there's anything that we can do to very positively influence this process to where everybody feels appreciated and not told to, but discussed with, I think we should definitely tackle this as a council.
Is there a BASO like helpline? Does Judith or Megan or does anybody from BHA know? Is there like a, I know that sometimes BHA was doing like office hours, for providers when the licensure thing was changing. Is there something like that for BASO that you guys can access?
There isn't. We had attended meetings and transitional discussions with diverses, and I'm in South Central Colorado and mostly rural, but not only. And so we had some conversations in general, and I know Daniel from Signal was helpful to talk about their general philosophy. The access on the level of contracting, on the level of like priorities and discussing needs and those kind of things has not been there. We attempted emailing and pretty much got the answer of we're too busy right now to talk to you. And so I completely understand. I mean, again, this is a gigantic transition. Colorado, last time I remember, went through something like this around 2000. And so with the MSOs. And so completely appreciate it and no issue with the seriousness of what they go through and the challenges that they have to tackle. On our end, I would like for us to have some tracking process of how the progress is being made in the opposite direction. Because I have a feeling what our experience has been, and I'm involved in 2 agencies, pretty much the same experience with both. What our experience has been is probably the experience of multiple provider agencies, and they may be talking about this in different opportunities. I'm not sure, but I wanted to bring this here as our goal is to help that process to be moved in the opposite direction.
Jenny, this is really helpful to hear. And I think if I'm hearing you correctly, it's like, how are we tracking the feedback and the communication? Because that's really important as this is developed. And as you eloquently point out, that not the first time we've done this, but a different way. And it's huge. And yet the voices and your concerns and questions for the BASO need a place to be answered. And so I think that's really helpful feedback and wonder, I saw you dropped a link to a form, Megan, in the chat. I wasn't able to open it. So I don't know if that was, you were shooting for like a feedback form or a.
Yes, thank you, Hope. I put the wrong one in there. I put the internal one. So let me find, I know there's another one for public.
And is
Margie has a hand raised.
Yep, go ahead, Margie.
I just wondered if during this conversation, if we should have a parking lot for our block grant requests, because this certainly seems like a topic that we could consider when we're making our requests through the block grant. And I'm not sure how you'd word it, but I guess is that a timely response to providers, but it just, I think we don't want to lose these, but they certainly seem applicable to our block grant requests.
Excellent suggestion, Marjorie. Thank you. I think we absolutely create a parking lot for that. And this lands in there. Thank you. And thank you, Jenny, for bringing this up. And we will come back to.
I mean, of course, I can sugarcoat it. I just don't think it's helpful.
No, it's not. We appreciate that. And thank you for bringing this to our attention. Absolutely very important. I am going to move us to our SAMHSA update from Ann Denton.
Hey. So good morning, everybody. As always, you all have so much going on that I'm in awe of the level of complexity and the amount of work that needs to be done. So in terms of a SAMHSA update, there is nothing new, although I will say that the SAMHSA block grant team is proceeding as if everything is on track. We have not heard anything about when the block grant application instructions are going to drop. So no news is good news. And I will say they're proceeding as if there will be no changes, which is the leadership of Michelle Gleason. And I think that that's the right way to do it. So that's exactly what she's doing. Everything's on track. There are no changes. That's a short update. I think it's hopeful, actually. Anybody have any questions?
Thank you, Anne. Just let us know what we can do as a council to continue to advocate for this amazing block grant and work that we do through the block grant. Thank you.
Yeah, I think that, the changes that you guys have made to your own internal process to focus on the block grant and to, sort of suspend the system advocacy activities while you're waiting for all of these system changes complicate advocacy. It's hard to be effective when you don't know what the rollout is going to look like and what the benefits and consequences might be. So we just don't know yet. So I think, but what we do know is that we have a block grant application coming up. It's it's the big application. This is a great opportunity to sort of fill in some of the pieces that have been missing. And to continue to keep an eye on how we're spending the federal money. I just think that you all made the right choice in doing that.
Marjorie.
I'm sorry, Des, but Anne, I wondered, I heard something on a news show and they talked about block grants. And would you get a sense that it would be important to include in our block grant recommendations to continue to fund what we are funding through Medicaid? Or do you think that would be too bold?
To shift the funding from block grant to Medicaid, Marjorie?
It was just it was a governor from another state, and he was saying that they should, let the Medicaid dollars be spent like Medicaid and like block grants. I'm sorry. And I just didn't know if there was any sense of in our block grant recommendations, if we should highlight areas of what Medicaid is funding, just so that we really are keeping those needs front and center in our block grant recommendations. Right. We don't have to necessarily mention Medicaid, but at least the things that we know are important that Medicaid is paying for.
Yeah. I think that's a question that your block grant committee can take a look at. It's sort of assessing the rollout from that is too complex for a conversation, for a casual conversation in this meeting. I think it would really need to be looked at. It sounds risky to me, but that's just my system spidey sense, but I think it's worth a more in-depth conversation. And I am working hard to arrange my calendar so that I can be at the block grant committee meetings. So we can talk about it more in depth there. Any other questions, comments? And one of the things that really helps with it could help with block grants is they're in statute. So they have to change, I assume they would have to change the statute to change I think that may be where some of Sam's confidence is coming from. But in this environment, it's hard to predict anything for sure. So.
And thank you so much for being here, for your support, for sharing some hope. I think that's always really beautiful and helpful to hear right now. So and thank you so much for being with us. And it's wonderful that you're going to be joining our block grant subcommittee. So thank you. This is awesome. All right. I just want to hold some space. Any other questions or comments for Anne before we move on? All right, we are in membership recruitment mode. Our application went live June 1st, and the application is live from June 1st to July 31st. So looking for some support in our recruitment for our council. Our membership subcommittee meeting was on Memorial Day, and I wasn't able to be at the reschedule. I don't know that was occurred. And I guess something that came to mind just as I'm looking at this is, do we have identified what seats that we need to fill on our council? Like what membership seats are we looking to recruit? Do we have that easily available?
Calandra, could you please share the membership recruitment info document? It's a PDF. I just dropped that in the chat as well for you all. I just put a few notes together for this conversation to kind of help with that. So I think that would be helpful for you all to see. So I just at the top just added, just kind of membership 101, just the basics of what the council is made up of, and the recruitment process. So there are currently on this council right now, there are 20 seats that are currently filled. And I understand the goal is to make sure that you stay within, that space, which would be kind of the ideal, sweet spot to stay when it comes to the number of seats that are filled. But the upcoming vacant seats are the ones that I've mentioned, all the seats and the folks in those seats. I do know per your bylaws that you can always reapply to join the council again with commissioner's approval. So I just have a few things in that note. And then a few ideas that I think Caitlin had discussed. Google is messing with me today. Oh my goodness, I'm so sorry. One moment, let me see. Yes. I think that's the default for all documents. I'm sorry. So I always have to take those couple of extra steps. Thank you. I appreciate it. Please do refresh and it will update your access. I just changed it so that you can all view it. So yeah, I just had a few notes in here. So under the Calandra, could you please move up a little bit to the recruitment ideas? So I think those were conversations that Caitlin had about a few ideas of who to talk to, where to recruit, who to outreach, and we can totally add to this list, of who to reach out to. And then I have a timeline under that calendar of the process, and then reviewing, and then just onboarding. Is there any other information that you'd like me to share? I reshared the application in the chat, and so please do share it widely among your networks for sure. We really are all the recruitment team right here. So.
And so in this document, my understanding is it shows what seats that we are specifically recruiting for. Is that upcoming vacant seats, right? Those
Yes, 6 seats.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, that's helpful to know. And I guess, Judith, was there anything else you wanted to add for membership recruitment? And if give you space to do that, and then I think we'll turn it over back to you to speak to our interim plan for the Block Grant System Advocacy Subcommittee.
I will add a caveat. I think I should add that note. I'm sorry, I missed that. These seats will expire, but please do remember that you didn't have a full council. So we still have that, 5 that were already vacant because you're now at 20. And I guess the, ideal goal is 25. And so I would say that it would then be the 5 that you're already missing, and then these 6. And so 11 in total to have a completely full council.
Marjorie.
I just wanted to identify the fact that the upcoming vacant seats, but some people were still were able to then reapply for their second term, whereas others had completed their second term. So there is that nuance between those people listed. And if you have done your second term, you can wait a year and then reapply. If I'm doing that correctly.
That's a great point. Thank you for flagging that.
And this is Megan. Let's just get this out there everywhere, right? It's like a good problem to have too many applicants versus not having a nice variety of folks that are interested, that want to come and hang out with us. So let's think about our, non-traditional partners and just people in the community that you see as leaders, right? This is an open and welcoming space, and we really want people to feel like they can come into this space and contribute. So let's get that message out there.
Thanks, Megan. That was very eloquently put. Okay. Judith, I'm going to turn it back to you for our interim plan for Block Grant Systems Advocacy Subcommittee.
Okay. Thank you so much. Thank you all. There's been a lot of input. I know Anne mentioned it a little bit earlier, but the goal is to make sure that a lot of the effort that you're doing is going to the block grant recommendation efforts. And so the systems advocacy subcommittee will be paused for a few months while you all work on the block grant recommendations. And so I reopened the block grant membership form. I'm going to drop that in the chat. I've had quite a few responses, and so I'm going to drop it in here again and open it up some more for additional folks to please go in. It's I have a poll of a few time slots, so if you could please complete that, and then once I think I dropped the application again. I'll drop that in a second. If you could please go back in there, select the days that work best for you to join the that block grant subcommittee. If you could please do that by the end of today, then tomorrow I'll send out the appointment for the dates that worked for most folks. And so I'll be able to send that out tomorrow, and we will change that previous schedule, which was on a Wednesday, I think a third Wednesday or second Wednesday, to the new one. I think that's all I have. Are there any clarifying questions about that?
Judith, this is Megan. I realize y'all just got off an airplane, and I'm giving you big hearts and love. That is the BPAC
Yes,
membership.
I did
So-
notice that. So
yes.
I'll drop
So,
this in a second.
So what we want y'all to do is to get excited about the block grant subcommittee. Again, we keep telling y'all to get really excited about it. We want to keep you all excited about it. And Judith is going to drop in the block grant subcommittee application so that you can see there's different dates and times, because we know that date and time wasn't working and we apologize for the oversight. But that doesn't mean you can't contribute. So fill out a time that works for you, and we're going to have the greatest crew doing our letter of recommendation. Even if you don't fill it out, once you have the time and date, you can come and hang out with us anyway. So let's have as many voices as we can to make sure that we are making recommendations that are touching all the folks we serve. And Judith, sorry about that. It's hard to keep the schedule you're keeping, my friend.
I have that in the chat now. Thank you all. And please email me with any questions.
Thank you, Megan, for always getting us excited. And I just think back, this is the party that we've talked about before, to come join the party. And the party's getting updated on a date and time, and that's to be determined. And that will be shared. And this is all hands on deck for our block grant recommendations, which are due September 1st. So thank you for bringing the excitement, the exuberance, and reminding us of this party that's happening, to be determined when and where. And thank you for everyone's support, as this is part of our goal and the reason that why we are here, and wanting to do this as a team and have everyone's voice represented. So thank you. And block grant party. Danielle's dancing. Okay, see, we need exuberance here and excitement and dancing, and we will make this fun and purposeful. So thank you. Okay. Speaking to our SAMHSA site visit and interview.
I think I put that in there. So there, a few of you are coming to that meeting. Megan shared that with us a little while ago. It's going to be on June 11th, 12:30 to 1:45. In order to make, to ensure, access to that meeting and provide some equity on, just how far, some of you live, we decided to make it an all virtual meeting, which really actually works. And so, Kasha had given us permission to open it up again to anyone who wants to join. She said, quote, SAMHSA said, the more the merrier. And so please let me know if you would be able to join, and we'll be able to add you to that invite. Yeah, that was all I had for that, just to let you all know that if you haven't already mentioned or raised your hand that you will be able to join, please do let me know if you can join now that it's virtual. Thank you.
Real quick, Judith, I was just going to go through who I have on here confirmed to join. So we have Dennis, Hope, Marjorie, Megan, and Kelly. So you all should already have the invite with the link to join. And then if this is something, as Judith just mentioned, if this is something that you want to be added to, please reach out to Judith and let her know, and we can get you added to that invite so that you have access to it as well.
Megan.
Thank you. I just had a question, like, what should we expect for this site visit? I'm just so curious what this is going to be like, because I've never done one of these before. So does anybody have any insight as to what that means, and what the discussion will be?
Anne, I'm wondering if you have anything to share for that.
Oh, just when Anne hopped off.
Oh, did she hop off?
She said, yeah, she had another meeting to go to.
Okay.
We could send her an email. She's pretty great. She can. Okay, I will do that.
Yeah, and I think from my understanding, Megan, it is, so SAMHSA is, they come out and they do a review of all of the block grant and what we're doing with the funding. And so it's their way of hearing from you all how everything is going. And I don't know any of the exact questions that they will ask you. This is also my first time being involved with this aspect of the process. It's pretty exciting. I love that they are reaching out to our council members as well as to clients. And so they also have a whole other session where they're talking with people that have been involved with behavioral health services. So people that have received services from System of Care or High Fidelity Wraparound from the Ascent program. And so that's pretty exciting too. I think it really gives them a really good picture of how important the funding that we receive as part of the block grant is and the impact that it has to the people of Colorado.
Thank you. And so that packet of information that they'll be reviewing, will we or do we have access to that same information? So as we're dialoguing about it, we know what it is we're dialoguing about, right? Like whatever sort of is in their inbox before they meet us on the 11th, will that be in our inbox too to review beforehand?
I don't believe so. That's not even information that I have access to, Megan.
Okay. Like, does Kasha have that then?
Kasha
in like
would,
the web gas world of nobody understands how to use the website. Like, is it in there? Or like, where is this info? If they're dialoguing with us about it, we should have knowledge of the information, right? Or I would assume so, that would be the case.
let me see if I can find out if Kasha has any more information on what their goal is and their purpose with asking questions of the council. I think that will help to clarify all of those aspects.
Absolutely. It'll help for us to understand what to be prepared for, to just kind of set the tone of walking in there so we feel prepared for whatever this might be. So that would be really helpful. Thank you for highlighting that, Megan, and for your support with that, Megan. Any other information, comments, questions around our SAMHSA site visit and interview next week on June 11th from 12:30 to 1:45? And now it is virtual only, which is helpful because I know there was an address in there. So we are not doing in person or hybrid. It is virtual only.
I think if anyone really has a burning desire to come in person, they welcome that as well. I do believe that the council, you all decided that you would participate virtually, but if anyone really feels like, oh, I want to be there in person, I don't want to say that that's not an option. It absolutely is. SAMHSA would still welcome that.
So just a point of clarification, if we do have in-person visitors, just to be equitable to our joiners who are full-time caregivers and cannot readily leave their homes, those without access to transportation, and those in rural communities, that oftentimes the in-person virtual hybrid leans heavily towards in-person, as we all gravitate towards actually looking at each other and being in each other's presence. However, we just want to make sure that for those joining virtually, that they have equal access to that floor. As we know, that's oftentimes just difficult. It's just hard to do.
Thank you, Megan. And I do believe that the folks that I just read their names all had agreed. And that was an agreement you all made amongst yourselves. But I do want to be clear that we still have that option, but you all had made that agreement amongst yourselves to join virtually.
Sean.
Yeah, unfortunately, I wouldn't be able to make the site visit. I'm in a training all week next week, but I'm wondering if I could pass someone's information on to the executive director here because she may be interested. Would that be all right?
So this is specifically for our council members, the interviews that they're doing.
Okay, that makes sense. Thank you.
But I wonder, to Sean's question, is there a way, is there like a line in for like a director of an organization to have that conversation about their SAMHSA block grant? It sounds like y'all have a different group that is a feedback loop for consumers and providers. So maybe just pinging SAMHSA and asking if maybe Sean's organization could be in a different one of those site visit sessions other than this one.
So there's one for consumers, Megan. I don't know if there's one for providers, but I am blowing up Kasha's email or her chat as we speak. So as soon as I have some answers, I will get back to you on that.
Awesome.
I think all of us have a burning desire to really showcase how much good we're doing with these block grants and how important these block grants are. And we just really want to brag on like how well we're utilizing this resource. And so any avenue, Megan, right? Like any avenue, regardless of whether it's a site visit or any way for us to really show how we've maximized those dollars. I hope I'm not speaking for others, but I feel like we all can say that we're all doing great work with this money.
Okay. We are right on time now, a minute early to take our break. So we are going to take our little break and be back at 10:10 for our presentation on our legislative updates with Ryan Templeton. So see you in 10 minutes. Right. It's 10:10, everyone. Welcome back from our lovely break. Looking forward to hearing from Ryan with your legislative updates. So happy you're here. It was wonderful to see you in real life. It's wonderful to see many of you in real life last week at the BHA Summit. It was awesome. So thank you. Looks like we're slowly trickling in here.
Hope, should we give it a few or just dive right in?
Well, it looks like we're slowly trickling in. Got a couple. We'll just give this just another couple seconds. Let everybody get back, get ready. All right. Whenever you're ready, Ryan, we'll turn the floor over to you. Thank you.
Thanks, Hope. Good morning, BPAC. I'm Ryan Templeton, the Legislative and Governmental Affairs Division Director with the Behavioral Health Administration. Yeah, legislative update. I think the last time BPAC met was May 1st, which was about a week before the session ended. So session ended May 7th. A lot of stuff happened during the 2025 legislative session. Judith put a link into the chat to a one-pager. That's just 7 behavioral health related bills. I'll also put a link into what we had previously been working through, where you had access to that behavioral health 2025 behavioral health bill dossier. So I'll put that in here as well, so you can see all of the behavioral health bills that we had tracked throughout the session. I think there's about 45 bills on there. Some of them didn't make it. Some of them you may think, well, how does this relate to behavioral health? Right? Those are some of the things that we were just tracking to make sure that, hey, as a state agency, when we need to update government forms to make them more or different demographic categories, like those are pieces that we followed along with as well. So even if you don't see a very direct behavioral health focused thing there, these are the bills that we at BHA we're closely monitoring and watching. So yeah, with the ledge session wrap up there, couple big ones there, right? The first one, 1124 UCP. We've talked a lot here within UCP, standing for Universal Contracting Provisions. Talked quite a bit in here about what that means. That was one of the first initiatives that the Behavioral Health Administration was responsible for, was to establish some level of universal contracting provisions that every state agencies that administered a behavioral health program had to have like contract terms. Statutorily, there was a whole lot of requirements that weren't contractual. So this bill, which was a BHA agenda bill sponsored by Representative Wyden, Senator Michaelson Janae, and Senator Cleve Simpson, was that to streamline what the requirements are to standardize and make true actual contracting requirements for behavioral health safety net service delivery. We know that 13 or 14 state agencies administer behavioral health programs, right? How can we make sure that that's consistent so there's less administrative burden on providers when they are contracting with state agencies? We're excited about that one, excited to get back rolling on UCPs and hopefully have a draft contract ready to go in the next year or so. I'm going to jump down to 1132 there, Military Family Behavioral Health Grant Program. This is also one that we've talked a little bit about, what did Prop KK do, right? That was the voters approved in November the Prop KK, which taxed guns, gun parts, ammunition to pay for certain things. The first $30 million of that tax goes to the victims fund to support victims of crime. Then the next, after the 30 million, $8 million comes to the Behavioral Health Administration. The first $5 million of that $8 million goes to support military veterans and family members of military and veterans behavioral health programs. With that, it's new money, right? it's voted upon by the people, but that is new money to the state of Colorado, even in a time of, hey, we had a bunch of budget issues, a $1.2 billion budget deficit. There are some still new dollars in there. BHA is to create a grant program very similar to the Veteran Suicide Prevention Grant Program that we had that repeals or sunsets and repeals as of June 30th. But this replaces that, or this replaces the opportunity for nonprofit agencies to support military veterans and family of military and veterans as part of that. It also supports a program in the Department of Military and Veteran Affairs to support VCLCs, or the Veterans Community Living Homes, and how they support behavioral health service delivery for those veterans living in Department of Human Services veterans homes. So big win there. And then you may be saying, well, wait, you said $8 million, but the first $5 million goes to veterans. The last $3 million of the $8 million goes to crisis service delivery for kids as part of the crisis system. I think this is a big win that I think kind of goes unnoticed within 1132 because it wasn't part of 1132. It was a part from a bill in 2024 that said, if the people vote to pass this tax, the crisis system for kids should be supported. So it came to realization when the people voted in November to do this. So with that, that's $3 million for crisis response or crisis resolution teams for kids. Right now, I think there's 12 counties that roughly run CRT programs. So this is continuing that program and hopefully expanding it as well. Megan, I see your hand up.
Thank you. So glad that's happening. And to your point about expanding that, and while expanding CRT, do you imagine then that there will be more streamlining of how CRT rolls out, not just in those 12 counties, but as you expand it, just so that there's more standardized expectations for how CRT shows up in the community as we know it, rather new and kind of interpreted differently because of home rule. Just wondering if there will be standardization as you roll that out. I'm sorry, it's crisis response teams. Is that what CRT stands for?
Yeah, crisis response teams. What it is a response after a child or youth has a crisis. What does community-based response look like for that youth and their family? A lot of times it is supports coming to the home to support the kids and the family to maintain in community. And I think, Megan, you're exactly right there. And I love how you are thinking about this, is how do we make sure that it is standardized so then when crisis resolution teams do go out and expand, that it is a standardized process so we can plug it into new counties, we can plug it into new programs, that there is consistency across counties because, right, people move. And so having consistency there is right on. And I would expect to see some regulatory updates in the near future related to what that would look like. I don't hold me specifically to that, but I think that is exactly what rules should be for, to make sure that there's consistency within that. And Megan, that's a shout out again to you on State Board of Human Services, as you'll see those directly.
Okay, and that was my other question. And I'm still new to state board, so I never know when rules come to like us or if they go to a different spot, and rules can go lots of different places. So that was one of my questions about 042. When you get to 042, was just where did those rules go? Because I think that does make sense. And then Ryan, would you be reaching out to BPAC just to let them know when that rule making process was happening? So that the council could, participate in the review of those rules.
Yep. Judith, Megan, I think that's a good call out for you to get agenda items with Tom and his new rules team. I know his new rules team is working on a full timeline of all of the regulatory updates that will be happening over the next year, next 18 months. That includes like the American Society of Addiction Medicine and the fourth version of that and how that's going to be rolled out, as well as the Certified Community Behavioral Health Clinic. There are CCBHC rules and what that looks like to roll out, as well as additional stuff like eating disorder treatment designations. So there's a lot of stuff happening, which, to be honest, even for me, gets fairly confusing, fairly quick, and I live this every day. So the more information that I think we get to groups like this, the more informed y'all can be to help us write those rules, right? I think that's the most important piece, is that y'all provide a level of expertise that we as state government do not have. And that's what our rules should show and highlight, is that, hey, this is a community driven process that supports really quality service delivery. And that's what rules should be. So yes, you should be seeing that, but I'll make sure that, yeah, Judith, Megan, you kind of include that as a regulatory update piece. Might be a good piece for BPAC.
Thank you, Ryan. And would Tom be, like, based on your dossier and based on this one pager, would Tom also be just kind of talking about, hey, you know, we're not necessarily in charge of this rule, but we supported the bill and the rule's going to go here. Like, you know, not all rules are going to come to one spot, right? Or even two spots. So will Tom include that as well? Just because it is super duper confusing, especially with behavioral health, because the rules don't always fall into the same bucket. Sometimes they're like in several at the same time.
Yeah, that's definitely a thing that I can support on. Tom's team is when BHA is assigned as the state agency to promulgate rules, right? Like, what is our plan when BHA is assigned by law to get this thing done through a regulatory process? For instance, if we go directly to Senate Bill 42, is the behavioral health crisis response recommendations. Within that, there aren't specific rules for BHA in there. So there's kind of two things that BHA does within that bill. Is we have to report on the shortages and potential reimbursement opportunities for the gaps in the crisis system, as well as how can we better support treatment in place, right? Like getting the care to an individual in their location, so we don't have to pick them up and drive them to a place, because we know we have some transportation issues. And I think Megan Shelton has brought this up quite a bit, is that when she's out in community conversations, transportation is a thing that comes up quite a bit. So that is the goal within that. That's not a rule promulgation piece. That is us requiring our behavioral health administrative service organizations to identify those gaps, to come up with the how you, as our intermediaries, bossos, are supporting the infrastructure that you identify that there's a gap for, and then ultimately telling us at BHA that then tells the General Assembly about, hey, where are the gaps and how are we planning to fill those gaps? I think this is a larger conversation that then informs the how do we use block grant dollars more effectively? How do we utilize the regional subcommittees that I think we maybe talked about this morning to also inform that process about where are those gaps? What is community seeing as gaps? Maybe a community sees a gap in a little bit different way than a provider or the intermediary sees it. How are we making sure that that information is getting to both the bossos as well as BHA, so we have a more cohesive community driven process for that? I think that's why I'm excited about 42, is because yes, bosses are supposed to do that, but this reiterates that, hey, you do this, bosses, and then also BHA is required to report back to the General Assembly. One of the things that 42 does is explains that the waiver that was approved for Medicaid or healthcare policy and finance to go after was to expand how often an individual can receive, the length of time an individual can receive services in an inpatient setting. Right now it is capped at 15 days. And if you go over 15 days, the provider doesn't get paid for the first 15 days. So this expands that to 60 days. In all honesty, that didn't need to be included in 42, but it's good to have it in there. So this is where healthcare policy and financing has already went through this. They are working with their federal partners to make sure that it is approved and into the state plan for Medicaid. So that should be ideally coming in July, but it's dependent on the federal government's approval, which there isn't a timeline for federal government approval. So it's healthcare policy and financing going back with the, hey, we submitted it, when are we going to hear back? Which hopefully soon, could be a couple months from now. Usually they're fairly good because they have close contact with their federal partners over there, but that's really a healthcare policy and finance
And so
piece. So
for the rules, sorry, because now I'm like in real world, Ryan, I didn't even know this much about how much this affects all of us. And so for 42, the BASO part of the rule you were just talking about, that will go to the State Board of Human Services. And like, where does it show up? Does it show up in the BASO section of the rule, or are y'all going to create a different section for this specific data collection process that the BASO will be charged with in this statute?
So the BASO requirement, so BASO's, we plan to use BASOs to execute on the legal requirement that BHA was assigned. To me, I don't think there is a regulatory piece associated with that. So there won't be rules going anywhere for that. It will be BHA in our contract that we have with BASO saying, thou shalt do this by this time, and you give it to us that then we make public when we share it to the General Assembly. So there isn't a regulatory process within that. It's more of a how are we executing the law piece through a contract lever.
But then do we like, where is the contract? Can we read the contract so we know, how that rollout looks? I know contracts are really wonky. I don't even know if I know how to read one, but if that's where it's gonna be, then is there a way for us to be able to read that? I know that's a really weird question, but I just feel like it's good for us to have that information. So to your point, we know how that data is being informed. And who
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a very good question, and I will absolutely take that back as I know we used to have all of our contracts posted online when we had individual contracts with community mental health centers as well as with the ASOs and MSOs. So that shouldn't be a new thing, and to me that's hey, produces a level of transparency within state government if you can see contracts, right? So
where online? I guess I just don't know that part yet. Sorry, I'm asking so many questions.
I'm speaking from before BHA was created, right? Where we used to have those, which maybe we still do, and I just don't know where they're necessarily be at.
Okay, but then the HCPF part will go to Medical Services Board. That's a different, because it's HCPF. The part about the 60 days, once they get the federal thing, then does that go to rule, or that's also not a rule thing?
So that goes into their larger Medicaid state plan. So the state plan and the state plan amendments come with an agreement between healthcare policy and financing and their Medicaid division and the federal government to get approval of that plan. Part of what HCPF has rules that goes to the Medical Services Board in healthcare policy and financing when they have rules or rule requirements to say set up what is the Medicaid network look like and what services do Medicaid members be eligible for. They also have rules that wouldn't come to State Board of Human Services, that is our rulemaking body as BHA, but would go to a different state agency's rulemaking body.
Thank you guys for your patience while I ask all these nerdy questions. Thank you, Ryan, for having the answers to all my nerdy questions. Appreciate you.
Moving down the list here, the sunset rule, alcohol and substance treatment, that's the continuation of a current program that we have. This is it's about $100,000 per year. It continues it for another 5 years. Half of the money is supposed to go to CDPHE for prevention work. The other half goes to rural withdrawal management, detox, service delivery, and rural communities. It's not a whole lot of money, but any money this year was great. So this continues it for an additional 5 years. And I think it goes until it repeals or goes through a sunset review again in September of 2030. Bonnie, do you have anything to add to that, our CDPHE friend?
And I also wanted to know that Tasha did have a hand up, but I don't know. Yeah, they had it, but I don't know if they want to ask again.
I was going to say about the contracts. I don't think the BASO contracts are up yet until July when they launch. I believe is the last I heard. I just wanted to say that right quick so Megan and everybody knows that.
Thanks, Tasha.
I wanted to add with the Rural Alcohol and Substance Treatment Fund. So the BHA, yay, sent us over those funds, and we weren't expecting them this year, so we were just so excited to have them. We were able to bridge those funds with 5 existing contracts that are funded by the Substance Abuse Block Grant or Substance Misuse Block Grant. The parameters were that I think the communities had to be under 20,000 people per county. And so we basically looked at who we were funding. We looked at who was on track to spend their budget in its entirety this year. And then we gave out to Rocky Mountain Youth Corps, Clear Creek County, Gilpin County, Bank County, Gunnison Valley Mentors. And I know in Bent, they're using the funds to, I think, expand their teen advisory board. And in, I think, Clear Creek, they're actually expanding childcare. So when you have your basic needs met in a community, substance misuse goes down and mental health outcomes increase. So we just really appreciated that. And when you told me the number, Ryan, I was like, wow, I think they gave us a huge percentage. It's a small number, but huge percentage. So appreciated.
Thanks, Bonnie. Savannah. Oh, you're still on mute.
Sorry about that. I had a question about the repeal for, and I can't see the bill. If you could scroll down a little bit. Yeah, more the other way. Yeah, okay. The repeal of the School Mental Health Screening Act. I was curious about if you could explain a little bit about what the School Mental Health Screening Act is, why it was repealed, and how that's going to affect care in Colorado for students.
Yep, very good question. And this was one of the bummer things of this year, right? With a $1.2 billion budget deficit that we had to make up across all state agencies. This was one of the newer programs, which in 2023, a bill was passed, 1003, that created this School Mental Health Screening Act. Part of that bill, it allowed BHA 2 years to get to the spot of screenings at schools for youth grades 6 through 12. So part of what it is that schools got to voluntarily say, want to be part of that. The first year, which is currently happening this fiscal year, I think there was only 6 schools that signed up for it. So part of the budget issues was okay, how can we cut programs that have a less of an impact because they're not fully established? And that's what Senate Bill 25238 did. It repealed the whole program. We had put forward a budget request that essentially said we can operate this program at a lower cost. The Joint Budget Committee said, you know what, this program isn't fully operational, fully rolled out. This is one of those ones that they made the decision to fully cut. And so that's just one of those ones where it's just not moving forward. I think there's other opportunities with how we at BHA support screening, assessments, and service delivery for youth in schools as a way to pick that up on a larger scale, and not necessarily this individual program, but how do we do that on a larger scale that isn't dictated directly to us by this individual program. So we're still optimistic that we can do that and work with schools to support screening, behavioral health screening for kids, and get them to the right spot, but it's just not through this individual program any longer.
Okay. And what could you just briefly mention what you guys are doing or you're planning on doing or thinking about doing for school high school age students?
Yep. So a big piece of what BHA is responsible for is setting up a full continuum of service delivery or behavioral health service delivery. One piece of that service is screening, assessment, diagnosis of youth. We have programs through our kids team that support schools and go into schools to talk about how can we best support schools to identify the kids that are struggling maybe, and how can we get them the support they need. Part of our behavioral health crisis response system also has a connection to schools, and how are we making sure that crisis service delivery is accessible through kids identified and identifying needs in schools. This is also a good opportunity to acknowledge our partnership with CDPHE and their prevention service delivery that is also primary prevention that sometimes is in schools, and making sure that there's healthy communities to identify or at least or get information to communities and youth about, hey, if you're experiencing things, here's a spot you could go, or here's how you can be healthier in your community. So this is also that connection to the how do we get way more upstream so we don't have to pay for the higher cost services that are harder to come by, harder to fund. I think that's the larger approach to what BHA is ultimately responsible for, is how do we make sure that we have a full continuum from super far upstream healthy communities to the highest levels of care of inpatient and hospital levels of care, and how do we fill out that whole continuum in between there. That is what our kids continuum division is there for, to really come up with the how are we executing on that, how are we making sure that that continuum may look a little bit different if you're in the metro area versus rural Colorado, and making sure that there is an allowance for that variation, what service delivery looks like as well. But fantastic questions, and those kind of questions I think are the exact reason why we have advisory councils as well, is making sure that you're holding us accountable to making sure that we are executing on that.
Yeah, I know young families with children in grade elementary all the way up. And I do know that these children, it just hurts my heart to think that they may fall through the cracks. So it's good to hear what you guys are doing. Thank you.
Yep, and Dr. Lyons, I see you asked the question, was the program well advertised to schools and communities in your opinion? I think with the new program, it's always there's hesitation to start a new thing. What we heard from some schools was, well, wait, if we screen a whole bunch of kids and we identify a whole bunch of kids as having these needs, what do we do with them then? Part of the program didn't provide funding. It provided a connection to the current system. And what we know with the current system, there's a bunch of gaps in the current system. So that is why schools backed out after initially agreeing to participate in it, and why we only got 6 schools this fiscal year. So that was part of it. And I think that's part of communication. That's part of the stigma that is behavioral health still, is when someone gets identified, how are we actually going to support them? I think that's the excitement about our behavioral health administrative service organization, is that is your connection. That is the front door. That is the, hey, if you don't know anywhere else to go, Boswell's is your answer, right? They are responsible for that service delivery. So I think we're in a better spot now than when we were when the bill passed. But ultimately a tough budget year for the state of Colorado with the cuts like this.
Thank you.
Yep. Last couple here that I'll address. I know I'm running out of time quickly.
Ryan. Dr. Lyons had a question in the chat.
A different one, Dr. Lyons, then?
No, same one. You got it.
Okay. All right.
Okay, cool.
Senate Bill 236, the consolidating the crisis response services, that is consolidating the 10-digit crisis hotline going away. 988 is your answer, right? 988 is where folks should go to receive phone service delivery for crisis response. The 988 Enterprise Board met yesterday and approved the support of peer service delivery as part of the 988. So a big win there for 236. And so that is also a level of cost savings for two very like services. So when you're thinking or communicating about the life-saving intervention that hotlines provide, 988 is your answer. So 988 is Colorado's crisis hotline. So that's a win for Colorado, is that's an easier number to remember, and it is live and active now. Last one here, the 25,290 is stabilization payments for safety net providers. This is a healthcare policy and financing program that distributes money to rural hospitals, comprehensive safety net providers, essential safety net, I'll have to double check, at least comprehensive safety net providers, to provide them with funding to support the ongoing service delivery that is raising costs. This is a healthcare policy and financing program that there is an advisor, not an advisory, but a review board. So safety net providers can submit applications to receive funding or stability payments. Charles. Yeah, so it's essentials were excluded, so comprehensive and rural hospital systems and federally qualified health centers, I think, are part of the list, but I'll double check what the definition in that bill for safety net providers is as well. Again, that's a healthcare policy and financing. So back to Megan Lovelace's line of questions at the beginning here is that if there are rules, it wouldn't come through BHA, that would be healthcare policy and financing about how the delivery, but I also don't know specifically if healthcare policy and financing has rule promulgation requirements for that program. But it's more money into the system, more money into the behavioral health system, which overall I think is a win for Colorado in a very, very tough budget year. I know I think I am at time. Anything else I can entertain before you move along? If you have questions, do not hesitate to reach out. Like, I think this is an important piece, as hey, the laws drive how things are happening. And I think going from, hey, what is the statutory requirements of a behavioral health system to how we're actually executing that at state agencies, I think is a fantastic conversation to be had, because that is how state government operates. So thank you for allowing me to participate.
Thank you so much, Ryan, for being here.
Yep, you're welcome.
Doesn't look like we have any further questions, comments. I thank you, Judith, for dropping Ryan's email address in the chat for anything that comes up. I know a lot of times that happens where you don't think of it now, but it comes up later. And so please reach out to Ryan. Thank you for your time and support here. And it's a lot to cover. You did great. We're right on time here. So we'll move right along to our community engagement with Megan and Judith.
Judith, are you taking this or would you like me to jump in?
Please do us the honors. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you all. So just to give you all an update, I mentioned, I think some of you had not yet jumped on. We had our first 2025 community engagement session in Alamosa, Colorado, with community members from San Luis Valley. We had members travel quite a distance to come join us, and it was an impressive crowd. We had expected around 20 people. We ended up with 55 people and had a really great resource fair, a mini resource fair where we had 6 different vendors come and showcase their resources in the community. Another very impressive piece of the community conversation was the representatives that we had from youth. We had a whole group, I think, of 8 or 9 youth that contributed to the discussion. They were very active. It was really wonderful to hear about youth, especially in the San Luis Valley community. So that was a tremendous success and a great way to kickstart our community conversations this year. And so we are in a few weeks, we're headed to Mancos near Durango for our community conversation on the 25th. So that will be in the evening, and all of the communication, I know you all are on our listserv, so you received the information about a month ago ahead of the Pueblo community conversation. It will be going out again today as we prepare for MACUS. And so in July, we will be headed to Boulder July 2nd, Grand Junction on July 15th, and Sterling on the 23rd. The July events will be a little bit different in that they will have a BASO launch component with them, as well as really promoting the resource fairs. Alamosa was our first resource fair, and it was a success. And so we encourage, if you know folks for the upcoming ones in Mancos, Boulder, Grand Junction, or Sterling, if you know folks in the area for the resource fair, as well as to participate in the community conversations, please share the word. And you will also get individualized email from me that I'll send out to this council, in addition to the larger listserv communication that will go out to you all from our comms team. And then following July, August is another busy month. We'll be in Fort Collins on the 7th, Breckenridge on the 13th, La Junta on the 19th, and Pueblo on the 28th. And then in September, we will wrap up with our last in-person community conversation in Denver on the 10th, and a statewide virtual community conversation on September 16th. And so in addition to all of those, since we shared a little bit of an update on the regional councils with you all, I know I shared this last month as well, but just wanted to reiterate. For the Mondays in July, we will have virtual engagement sessions on the regional council. So these will really be informative sessions of what does it mean to serve on a BASO regional council? What are the responsibilities? What is the commitment? All of the things folks need to know as they're considering putting in an application for those councils. And so we will have those be specific per region just to get as much outreach. But if folks can't make one of the Monday sessions, they can join another one that's not necessarily in their region just to get the information. And so currently we have Region 2 scheduled for Monday, July 7th, Region 4 on the 14th, Region 3 on the 21st, and Region 1 on the 28th. The order varies a little bit just depending on when we're doing the community conversations, so that we would kind of spread it out. And I believe that covers that. What questions do you all have for community conversations?
Megan has a few questions in the chat about some of them not being on the calendars. I think we're working out the Zoom links and the locations. And so we post them as we get them all kind of finalized.
Yes, Megan, all of these will be on the calendar by the end of this week. We are shoring up locations, Zoom links, as Judith just said, and then those will all be updated onto our calendar.
Including those virtual ones, right? Just because, when we
Absolutely.
share stuff out for our communities, it's the easiest if we share it in the calendar, right? And you go to this calendar, click this day, you can register, whatever you need to do.
Yes, all of them. It will be very inclusive. So all of the virtual events, all of the regional council events, all of the community conversations, those will all be updated on the calendar. About the first half of them are. It's just the later ones that we were shoring up the details that are not quite on there yet, but they will be working on that today and tomorrow. And then I just saw your comment on Breckenridge on Friday the 13th. I want to make sure I didn't misspeak on that one. Breckenridge is on Wednesday, August 13th.
Thank you. I was looking in the wrong month. That's why I couldn't.
No worries.
Thank you.
And I'm just looking to see if there's other questions in here. Megan, so we are headed to Mancus for our community conversation on June 25th in the evening. But prior to that, we will be meeting with each of the tribes. And so, hold on, I just want to make sure that I'm saying this correctly and getting the order right. We will be meeting with Ute Mountain Ute on June 24th and then in the afternoon, and then Southern Ute the morning of the 25th prior to our community conversation. And those are for behavioral health tribal consultations. And so that is in partnership with the Gov's office, CDPHE, CDHS, and HICPUF.
Thank you for that clarification. I'm just going to shout out Danielle here. Make sure you know that they're coming to your hood and that you are included in all that.
So is that going to be like at the tribal office? Are tribal members going to be allowed to join that? Or are they only going to allow the tribal council to speak on behalf of the people? Because a lot of times tribal council will sugarcoat things and they don't really know what's going on in the community. It's the tribal members are the ones that, are suffering with the real mental illnesses. So those are the people you need to talk to, not the council leaders, because they're not going to give you the real deal, let me just tell you, because I'm from there.
Thank you for that important question and call out. I am messaging our tribal affairs specialist right now. She may have more information on that aspect of it. This is fairly new to us. In the beginning of 2023, I believe it was February of 2023, they did a behavioral health tribal consultation with Dr. Medlock. This may look different, so it may not even follow that same structure, but there hasn't been any others since then. So this is the next one. And I think that's a really important question. So I will get back to you. And if I don't get back to you in the next 8 minutes before this meeting ends, I will send you an email response.
Any other feedback, questions, comments for Megan and Judith on community engagement and the events that are coming up? Busy time for everyone.
Thank you guys for getting back out into the community, BHA. We appreciate that. And we're so looking forward to the sort of feedback report outs that come from all these visits and what we learn together in community. Thank you.
This is the first time, maybe, in a real long time, that we are going to glide right into, we have 2 minutes until our public comment. So we've really nailed our time and agenda today. Go team. I see prevention is on here, and I wasn't sure on our agenda if that was just left over from before, if there was intention behind what we're having it on our agenda.
No, that was the leftover. Sorry, we don't have any updates. None that I know of.
We did it. We did it. Public comment in 1 minute. All right. Well, let's open the floor for public comment.
And a reminder, this is the time for members of the public to go on record here with us at the Behavioral Health Planning and Advisory Council.
Megan and Hope, if it's okay with you, while we're waiting to see if anyone has questions as members of the public, I was going to go ahead. I have an answer for Danielle, if it's all right if I go ahead and answer that. So it sounds like there will be behavioral health providers and leadership, but not community, and that it is the tribal council that decides who attends. Shauna Maher, our tribal affairs specialist, said that is her understanding of it, but she will follow back up and confirm. But we as BHA don't have a say in that. What we do have, Danielle, is I would really encourage folks to come to our community conversation on the 25th. And so I think that is another opportunity, and that is one where BHA, our doors are open to everyone, and we really welcome as many people as possible to come and engage with us during those conversations.
It sounds good. I mean, I don't have a problem with a ride because I have vehicles, but a lot of tribal members don't have vehicles, and so it'd be virtually impossible for them to make it to Mancos, which is farther than Cortez. So it's just that's just one thing that it just goes to show you that, it's not, the system is not set up for the people. There's always going to be that blockade. And ours is our tribal council. They always stand in the way of getting help for our people. So that's my comment.
Thank you, Danielle. I am encouraging our tribal affairs specialist to find out more and to see if there is opportunity for that. But it's not something that BHA has authority over. And I hear you.
I wonder if, so does that mean, because I'm not sure how that works, but I know that sometimes when we've visited, we stay at the casino has like a community rooms that you can rent out. And I don't know how that works, or Danielle, if that even makes sense, but I don't know if there's a way for you guys to just like maybe have a separate, I don't know. I don't want to break any rules or anything, but if there's a way to do like a separate conversation with community. But maybe that's too off base. It's just a thought.
I would say go with the Mancos one and then see if anybody pops up, or if there's like, if we could even just like mention, because I'll probably show up and I'll try to get as many people as I can to come. But yeah, we'll just go with that.
Okay. Thank you for that recommendation, Danielle.
Tasha.
I was going to suggest, isn't there something on the Behavioral Health Administration Advisory Council or the BHA website that has a place where community members can put in their feedback? I'm not too sure. I'm just saying that might be something that she could share with the community members if they can't make it to the meetings, so we can make sure that the tribes have their input, that not just the council but the community members. So that's just something I don't know if we have something like that on the BHA website or whatever, but that's it. Yeah.
So not feedback for the tribal council, Tasha, just feedback for BHA. And then when we do the community conversations, we do have a feedback form specific to the communities in which we're going to. I also want to be mindful that it is 11 o'clock. Because I see there is some chats in here about the time. So I want to make sure we're not going over.
Thank you. And I think that's a great suggestion and wonderful way to be of support, Tasha. Thank you. Well, it is 11 o'clock. Our meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everyone, for being here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.